Welcome to TQ Talks, where taxes meet planning. Here's your host, Craig White.
And we're back with another exciting episode of TQ Talks, man. I tell you, I'm surrounded by amazing people. Last time we had Ravel D'Souza, owner of Empire Tax, on the show, and you guys ate it up. Again, he's a talker, so it's great because he fit right in with all his craziness and what was going on. And today I have a special guest, another one of our buddies from Florida State, Mr. Jayson Jones. And I'm going to repeat that, Mr. Two-time Olympian Jayson. I can't even get out of YMCA, guys, but this man here. Jay, what's up? How you doing, man?
What's happening, man? Thank you for being here.
Oh, man, thanks for coming, bro. I know this is your first, I think, podcast or your movement, and I know you're like sort of apprehensive about the yapping on the mic situation, but I'm gonna go into your background in a moment, but I want to make sure people understand some things, right? I say things all the time. This guy here and Ravel, as a matter of fact, in our chat, I said it the other day. Y'all two miss your callings. I know. So let me back this up. Jayson actually brought all of us into the tax business because you brought Ravel in, Ravel brought me in, and I know Patrick was already sort of in, but you have been the catalyst for all this stuff. But beyond finances, taxes, Florida State, and all that foolishness, which we'll get into, you two have a voice, and you guys are great storytellers, right? And you captivate people in a way that makes them happy. You could be selling, what is it, sand to a, whatever it is, water to a whale or whatever people say, and it works, right? And it's natural. It's not that you're over here, bamboozling and pulling wool over people's eyes. So I know what you're doing, but I feel like you should be doing public speaking or, storytelling. Shout out to Andy, but it is what it is. So how's your day? How's everything going?
Man, listen, my day's going well, and I've heard that from tons of people, hey, man, you should be talking. You should be talking. You should be talking. It'll come. The opportunity will present itself, and I'll step into it. So
good. Well, we're gonna use this platform to start this thing off. So what we're going to go over, people, you already know we are a tax planning company and all that good stuff, but realistically, we try to give you perspectives from different business owners, their journeys, their successes, their failures, what's happening in their lives. So you guys can relate because, a lot of people, as we watch on different programs or we see it on podcasts, it's always is grass is green or it's either horrible doom and gloom, but they don't give you all the information. So it's great to hear from different people to see how their lives have been and what has brought them to where they currently are. So this episode, we're going to talk about competing at its highest level, mindsets of elite performance, right? He can do that. I can't give you all that. Like I said, I'm YMCA up in here. And the level of discipline and how that translates into business, because you have to have that in order to be here. So again, Jay, we really, really appreciate you joining us, and we're going to jump right into it. How did you first get into the track and field?
Yeah, that story is kind of funny. So I wasn't even the fastest kid on my high school track team. I actually wanted to play football. So when I was a kid, let me go back. I was born and raised in Germany. So my father was in the Army. I traveled all over the world. Probably when I was between the ages of 3 and 7, I lived in the small suburbs of Chicago. Back in the day, I'm dating myself, but back in the day, you would see athletes just walking around because they weren't the way they are now. And so we met Walter Payton, the late, great Walter Payton. And I don't exactly know how that conversation flowed, but he invited my mom and my sister and myself to what's called the roast of Jim McMahon, because the Bears had just won the Super Bowl. And, so first time I wore a tux, met all these football players, and the idea of being an athlete kind of was like born there. I said, oh, okay, I want to be like Walter Payton. And I was a lean back then, right? So I was a lean. I was not built. And so football was my love. Football is what I wanted. Track was just kind of like an afterthought. And senior year in high school, got hurt in the championship football game. I actually busted my spleen, had emergency surgery. The physician had told my folks and told me, hey, football is out. You're no longer can be an athlete. And so I wanted to still compete. And my friends were like, you should just focus on track and field. So that kind of started from there, right? Growing up in Germany, the competition wasn't nowhere as close as it is in the United States. And so the fastest kids in Germany were probably running at the time like 10.8, which is fast for Germany at that time, but really slow in the United States.
What distance is that, though?
This is 100 meters.
Okay.
For the 100 meters. So I'm a 100 meter, 200 meter, 400 meter sprinter. Coming out of high school, I was like 11.2. Like straight up and down.
That's slow then. If that's
super slow. Super slow. Again, the fastest kid on my team was like 11 flat, and he was fast to us.
Right.
So I got to Florida State, walked on to the track team, and back then it was like they'll take anybody back then. And so they had like a travel team, and then they also had a training team, and then they had like a backup to the training team. So that's who they let me come on and be that, a backup to the training team. But they threw me some equipment, and they told everybody, hey, if you want to make this travel team, you're going to have to come to practice like you're an athlete, like you're on scholarship, put in all the work, and we may evaluate you off of practice to get you into the meets. Wow. So that's kind of like how it started.
So then you didn't really take it seriously until pretty much the senior year or going into Florida State, realistically Florida State.
Yeah, it was really the downside to what happened was, excuse me, my best friend passed away the spring semester of my freshman year. He went to FAMU. I was at Florida State. He got into a car accident. He ended up passing away. And so that really clicked for me. That made school a little bit more real because again, you got to think my family is in Germany. All of my friends were, in Germany. And so going to that small city in Florida, Tallahassee, it was just him, right? So when he left, it was just me. So I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And I had already made the team, or the walk-on team. Right. And it was just like, okay, let me become the best version of myself.
So what, because one of the things I was going to ask on there was, my son, he says he plays basketball and he doesn't take it seriously, which is very frustrating from a guy who plays basketball. So, I'm going over percentages and odds with him all the time, trying to explain D1, D2. As a matter of fact, yesterday I showed him, was it Jose Alvarado? I can't remember, but his NBA player, he was talking about his journey, and he was a D1 athlete. Knew he wasn't going to make it in the draft, ended up getting a two-way, which is what they told him. He was excited, which is amazing. And he said that I think one of his first tryouts, you have NBA tryouts, you get called by teams. He said he got cooked by a JUCO player, which I showed. It was Mr. Shrugs. I showed Liam who the guy was. Like, first of all, this guy's a lefty. He's a beast. And just because he's JUCO, don't take it, don't think, man, these D3, D2 guys ain't going to whoop a D1 person. It just depends on life and circumstances, right? Yep. Could be grades, could be family, whatever the case is. So now here you are walking on, and we're going to get to the Olympic parts in a second, but what did it take for you to become a real D1 athlete? Because I don't think people understand the amount of dedication that you have to do just as a college athlete in general.
Yeah, so that is wild when I think about it because I was getting whooped by girls, right? So I was getting whooped by girls, and we're just talking about workouts. So the beautiful thing about going to Florida State back in the 90s is you had some amazing athletes there. Mm-hmm. And so if nothing else, you wanted to be at that level, right? And so on that track team, when I walked on, you had a guy named Warwick Dunn. Mm-hmm. You had a guy named Jonathan Carter. You had a guy named Philip Riley. You had two guys named Cleon Blake and Patrick Hayes. So at any given time, and these guys were like between 10-1 and 10-3 any given day. And then in the 60 or the 55, these guys were running 5 and 6 seconds. So, I mean, it was one of those things where just going to practice and looking at those guys compete at the highest level, it was like, I want to be like that.
And not to interrupt you, I want to make sure people understand. And these people, some of them played pro football, meaning at Florida State and then on in the NFL. So they're doing double duty, which is also why I went to basketball there, by the way, because y'all worked way too high. I was not doing all that crap. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, and then you got to think being an athlete, but also claiming that you're an athlete. There's like an ego and there's like a pride thing, and then there's like you don't want to be embarrassed. So like if you tell somebody you run track and then they come to your practice or they come to the meet and you're sitting in the stands, it's like, I thought you ran track. So like, and then if you run and you tell them you run and then they show up at the meet and you get your doors cleaned, like it's that embarrassment factor. Just, it made me think, nah, I have to step my game up. Okay. I said I wanted to walk on. Football is out. Let me at least, try my best. And when I looked at what those guys were doing, the type of work and all the work that they were doing outside of what the coaches put in front of us, it just made me realize, like, okay, it's not just what you do at practice. It's like what you do when you leave the practice or when the coaches leave and you have to do some extra work. So I had really great inspiration by those guys.
So what is briefly, what does a routine, like a day, look like? I can tell you football and basketball, because the basketball guys did not train with football guys, but I was so small that I had to train with the football guys. So I could tell you what the day looked like there. Thank God I didn't have to do 2 days and all other stuff. But what does a track day look like for morning, for a college athlete?
All right. So we're going back in the day, but, so when I got to school, I was a lean, right? So probably less than 150 pounds, which is crazy, right? And for anybody to see you call yourself a D1 athlete and you're looking like, high school freshman, it's just like you don't play D1 sports. So I had to immediately get into the weight room. That's one thing that we didn't do in high school, and in college that was a mandatory. So what we had to do was morning weights, 6 a.m. weights, which was probably around an hour and a half. It didn't matter if you had an 8 o'clock class, you had to be at practice at 6 a.m. You go to school, after your classes, then you have track practice at like 3 o'clock. But you have to get there like 2:30 to warm up, to stretch, do all that stuff, be ready to go at 3 o'clock. Practice in the afternoon lasted about 2 hours. And then if you had class in the evening, it sucks for you because you'd be in class, but you'd be tired. And then after class, you'd have study hall because you got to keep your grades up. And then you do whatever you want to do in the evening time. But for me, I wouldn't go back to work, but I would be doing stuff in my dorm room. When I had an off-campus apartment, I would be doing push-ups and sit-ups, and I would be doing a lot of film. Like I would look at, like, what were these guys, back in the day we had VHS tapes and stuff like that. So I would look at these Olympic athletes and these pro athletes and what were they doing, and just kind of like reading their stories. So it was like a full day, full immersion of wanting to be great.
Well, it worked, right? It worked. And for perspective, just to let you know, so when I walked on basketball, I was 135.
Wow. Yeah.
6 foot. Yeah. He immediately, Pat Kennedy was there at the time, and then it changed. He was like, bro, listen, I never touched a weight, but it is what it is. Life, you learn. I didn't know these things. We're from Jamaica. Who does, man, come on. So now we're transitioning into you went through your 4 years, and now the Olympics is not really in the radar. And I'll let you tell that story, but what happens that lets you say to yourself, oh, you know what? This is what I've accomplished. I walked on. I became a real good D1 athlete. Let's make sure we're very clear about that. I've exceeded expectations of myself because honestly, outside looking in, we didn't know all that, Jay. Yeah. We all just knew you was a fast guy. I'm just being honest. We didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
So it's news for me. But here comes the Olympics, and throwing a stat again out there. Like I said, is 1.9%, if I didn't say it before, of men. I think it is the stat that I read would end up being able to compete for track and field on a D1 level. 1.9%, which is nothing. It gets even worse on the Olympics because it's 1 out of 500,000, right, of people for track, which is insane.
Yeah.
So tell us how that happened. What did you end up doing to be able to do that?
Right. So there was a transition period. So it was like my sophomore year, one of the names I mentioned, his name was Jonathan Carter. He had just run a really fast time, qualified for USA's, and he was back at Florida State doing a workout before he went off to run USA's. And so the workout that he was running was like an all-out 200, and so he needed a rabbit. It so happens that I was at the track that day, and the coach was like, "Hey, Jason, JC's going to give you a 50-meter start, and he's going to run you down.
A quarter of the way he's going to give you and run you down."
Because, again, at the time, I was like a 22-second, 21-second 100-meter runner. And this guy had just run 10.0 in the 100, and he was a 20-point, 200-meter runner. So, in theory, he should have caught me.
Ain't going to catch. Right? That pride going to kick in because, I'm sorry, bro.
So, I'm like, you're giving me 50 meters?
Right.
Come on.
Must be crazy. Right? Yeah.
But I wasn't the mental mindset like I have now. I wasn't like that. I knew I was good and fast, but and I knew I was working hard, but when they shot that gun and we took off, I don't know where he was behind me, but I know I crossed the line before him.
Oh, there we go.
Right? And so at that point, I was selling out. I was like, I knew it. And I asked the coach, I said, "Do you think I could run 20-point next year?" Mind you, I was a 22-second, 21-second runner. Right. He was like, "No, you can't run 20-point. But if you want to run 20-point, you're going to have to stay in the weight room over the summer and put in the work." And so that whole summer, I was in the gym like 2 hours a day. I was doing mileage, and I came into fall camp a different being. I had put on probably 10 pounds of muscle. Like, I was different, totally different. And so at that point, from my sophomore year going into my junior year, just off of the work that I put in, I was nominated team captain. I became the man at Florida State. Like, that was the transition that summer. And so that year I was like the fastest guy for Florida State at the time. And it's when I look at the times and what they're doing now, it doesn't compare. But at the time, I was the fastest guy at Florida State. Right. And I was the only guy to make the 100-meter final at ACC championships for Florida State. And I went to Texas Relays and made the 100-meter final for Florida State. So that year, I forget my fastest time of that year, but that was the year that gave me the understanding that I can qualify for the Olympics the next year. This was 1999. And so I ran for a small country called Belize. My parents were Belizean by birth, and so I inherited my nationality. Back in 1997, my uncle, who was working with the athletic federation, told them that his nephew runs track at Florida State. I tell this funny story. I sent them a picture. They sent me a passport, and I was on from then. So I would run for Belize from 97. And so when the Olympics was coming around, it was like an opportunity. And so the beautiful thing about Belize is it's one of those countries that they are given like two representatives that have to qualify, but two representatives, one male, one female, to go represent the country. And so I was the fastest male of all the Belizean athletes that were across the country and across the world. And there was another young lady who was the fastest as well. And so we didn't have any trials or anything like that. It was just my time. Actually, my times in 99 got me to get to the Olympics in 2000.
That's pretty cool.
So 2000 was a rough year for me. Just a really rough year, but I was still able to compete at the Olympics.
So now what is it like? I mean, we see it on TV. And I know for you it's different. I tell people, levels are levels, right? Yeah. But what is it like when you're there? Not just, competing is the question I want to ask, obviously, because we're talking about competition. But beyond that, like you're seeing the greatness from every country, man. That part is amazing.
The beautiful thing about the Olympics is leading up to the Olympics and opening ceremonies were all the same. Like, we're all the same, meaning that for the 4 years leading up to the Olympics, we're all training to be the best. Nobody starts training to lose. Nobody starts training to get second or third or not even place. Everybody trains to be the best and to win. And so, leading up to the Olympics, That's what we are. We're training to be to be an Olympian, and we're training to be an Olympic champ. And then opening ceremonies that day, we're all champs. We're all champions. You know what I'm saying? It's just day one.
Right.
Day one of the Olympics is when things shift.
Right.
Where there's a winner and a loser and stuff like that. But just being, immersing yourself around, other athletes, you're seeing how they, because again, it's nothing but like they just moved their training camp from wherever they're training to the Olympics. And
Makes
so
sense.
now you're starting to see like, oh, okay, that's what they do for workouts. So that's what they do to sharpen up, but that's what they're doing. And then you're meeting with them and you're eating in the cafeteria with them and you're seeing them in the city that you're at. You're seeing it. And it's just a beautiful thing because a lot of these people you saw on TV.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then like the real famous athletes, like the basketball players or the tennis players or even the swimmers that are like really super famous, they're like regular people.
Right.
You get to connect with them.
That's pretty. So what is briefly, because I want to get into the other two segments, but what changed between the first one and the second one? Like, what are some key points that you were able to see? And then what were the biggest lessons you took away from being at either of the Olympics?
All right. So the first one, I was essentially happy to be there. I knew time-wise and even mentality-wise, I wasn't on the level to compete at that level. I was on a level, but clearly those people were on a different level, like a different level. And then I would have qualified for 2004. Like I was literally in Belgium racing. I had a time that I had to get to. I had to run like 10:27. I had run 10:31. And I chased that time. And anytime you chase time, you'll never get it. You just have to go out and chase run an executable race. And I'm talking about a 100-meter race. Yeah. So in 2008, so like 2007, going into 2008, my mentality was back like when I was at Florida State in that year, 1999. Like I was strong and fast, and I had a swagger about me because like I had nothing else in my life. And so, I mean, I was married. I had a kid. I married a single mom. So like I had that, but like as far as like when I say nothing else, like I graduated in 2000. I graduated with my master's in 2003. I fully focused on track and field all the way up until that point. So I didn't have no work experience. So I'm working odd end jobs, chasing this dream. And so like, I really wanted this thing to work. Like I really had it in my mind, and at that time now you have this guy named Usain Bolt. He's running really fast. And so he's bringing more awareness to the sport. So there's more opportunities for the sport. And that's what I wanted. You know what I'm saying? Everything that he did, I wrote it in my journal. I knew it could be done by a human being.
Right.
So what I took away from the difference between going to 1 and 2 is the second one, I felt like I can compete. I felt like I was ready. And at the end of the day, he would have had to see me. Right. And so like, that was my mentality. Like I belonged there. I earned it. And I wanted to see how fast I can compete against the world.
So, and what's your takeaway from those experiences? What lesson, I should say?
My lessons, the lesson from both of them is you don't have to win to win. At the end of the day, getting better than what you were before, it is what it is. And because, again, I go back to we all started training to win, but everybody has their own levels of what they're going to win out of it. And it's not about a medal. It's about beating yourself and being yourself and being the best version of yourself. And it's taken away that you gave it your best.
Well, that brings us into the part, because we're still talking business theoretically.
Yeah.
So from all of that, because that's a lot of things that you're dealing with, what carried over into the business? Because you're also a risk taker for me. In my head, I say you have the best ideas, right, coming into things. So what carried over naturally when it comes into from sports, athletics, training, discipline, mindset, mentality, that kind of stuff, and then going into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so in business, you have to be, well, entrepreneurship, I should say, you have to be fearless, right? I always say, I wish entrepreneurship for everybody, but I don't wish it on anybody because it's rough, right? You can have your mango season, which everything is winning, or you can have a barren season, right? And what translated from sports to the business world was perseverance and dedication and determination. Because nobody's going to give you anything. You have to actually go out there and get it. And in sports, the same thing. You can't say, hey, I want to be a great athlete, and then it just shows up on your doorstep. Like, you got to go out there and go get it. And I'll use this analogy. A 100-meter sprinter typically runs probably about 42 to 43 steps in 100 meters, right? You're running about 10 seconds, but you're training for 30 hours a week just to run that 10-second race. And it could be a 10.2 or it could be a 10.5. We're talking about, it's the steps and the movements, right? And so attention to detail is very key. Going into business, it's attention to detail because you can skip a step and it'll put you behind, right? And so one of the steps I skipped in my business was marketing and advertising. Because I thought, okay, you could just tell everybody, hey, this is what I do, and everybody's going to show up. And it's not like that. There is like a whole method and methodology behind it. And just like most people think, oh, okay, this guy ran a 4.2, 4.3, this guy ran a 10-second. It should be easy. Right. It looks easy. No, it's not. There's levels to the game. And so sports and business are kind of the same because you really have to kind of create what's called a North Star, which is effectively a goal, and you just reverse engineer that goal. What is it going to take to get there? And we do that in sports all the time.
So, like I said, we talked about the tax stuff in the beginning. What are you, but to me, you're a serial entrepreneur, good and bad in that, right? Which is, like you said, you got to be a risk taker. What are you currently focused on now? Like, what excites you about what you're doing or what phase you're in currently?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Could be nothing, could be something, could be all.
So, the thing is, I'm gonna drop it on your podcast today, man. I told you I met Walter Payton, right? The late great Walter Payton. And, watching how Walter Payton trained and competed, that's what I wanted, right? As I moved up the ranks in my life and when I got to Florida State and I saw a lot of my friends that were in class with me going off to go play in the NFL and signing these big-time contracts, I heard some of their, qualms or complaints and decided, like, there's got to be a difference maker, right? There's no representation at the management level. There's no representation. There's not enough representation at the management level in the NFL we're talking about. Not enough representation in the coaching staffs and then ownerships. So I'm like, with all these millionaires that are created, why don't, a group of these athletes come together and go and become team owners? You become a team owner, you have more say. You can create more opportunity and changes, right? And so the only thing you could do is change it. When you try to do a change, it has to be from the top. So here comes Jayson, ambitious. I just finished running really fast, and I'm like, man, listen, I'm gonna when I'm 50, I'm gonna be a billionaire, and I'm gonna own an NFL team. That was 30 years ago. Almost, right?
Yeah.
Because I'll be 50 next year. And so what's been my North Star is everything that I've chased after I've achieved. So if I said 50 is the Billy status, oh, man, everything that I'm doing is going to get me to that status. Well, listen, I'm about $1 billion short right now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But they always say you're like six people away from, where you're really supposed to be, or right. 3 different chances away from what you truly want out of life. So, helping people has always been my thing. Taxes was cool. My aunt taught me how to do taxes by hand, when I lived in California. learning to use the software, and understanding the whole tax industry and learning a little bit about the tax code, that was great. Wasn't really a passion of mine. My passion is helping people. And so creating opportunity and creating change is like really my thing. So what I'm doing outside of accounting is in the health and wellness space, and helping most people try to become the best version of themselves. So I have a company called Grown Up Meds, grownupmeds.com. It basically is, accessible to, you have to be 22 years or older, but it's for medical supervised weight loss, the GLP-1s, the peptides, the hormone replacement, testosterone replacement therapy, everything and anything that science has put forth to basically change people's bodies in a very logical and ethical way. So that's kind of my thing right this moment. Just came out of tax season, and, not for nothing, doesn't matter. Matter of fact, I was just on a call with a client just this morning where clients don't respect accountants or accounting at all until they run into a problem.
Always,
So that's where the frustration is, because they don't see value in what we do until it's like they get a letter from the IRS, or there's some sort of something broken in their system, and they need their internal person that's over their accounts doesn't know the intricacies of like how to fix this or how to fix that, and then they reach out and then they try to nickel and dime you. So that's being a serial entrepreneur at the end of the day is chasing after the satisfaction and fulfillment of your purpose and your calling. And so that's really it is an entrepreneurship, but more so it's people. I'm a people person.
I mean, but you're also, you're a health guy anyway. The fit 40, fit 50, you're gonna fit right in no matter what. So to me, this sounds like exactly the space, in addition to the accounting, where you should be anyway. And I think all of us would pretty much say, yeah, okay, we see this coming, right? The story's been written. It's on the road. They say writing's on the wall. So that's where I'm happy for you. I'm excited to see where this goes. And obviously the partnership with your wife as well. We're not going to get into that unless you want to, but that it makes a difference. Like, meaning you have that part of it already going on with her knowledge and understanding from the other side. So that makes total sense. If there was one thing that you'd want people to take away from your entire movement, from getting on the field at Florida State, right, for the first time, going to the Olympics twice, having an accounting business, starting another business, and where life is leading you coming up to age 40, what would the takeaway be? What it could be, a word, a sentence, a phrase, a thought, whatever it is. What would you want people to gravitate towards or understand?
You mean coming up to the age 50?
Yeah. Well, you are coming up to age 50,
Yeah. That's a great question. That's a really great question. So, the one takeaway, right? So I got a bunch of kids, and what I've learned, with this first half of my life, because I plan to live to 120, is you don't need to compare yourself to anybody, right? Everybody's journey is different, and everybody's part of their life where they are is different. And so, I may be 48 now, but another 48-year-old male that's married with kids, their life might be way different. And that's okay. And you have to be okay with where you are in life. And if you want something different, you can go after and go get it, because that's just the way it is. But to not compare yourself to anybody, and just always, there was a saying that T.D. Jakes used to say is, if you ever needed to know where you needed to be, just look down on your left and your right foot, and that's where you're supposed to be. And so you are where you are because of where you are. And to keep on, if you desire to want to do something different, you just got to put your mind to it. And so that's one of the things I tell my kids all the time, like, trust and believe in yourself, and also put in the effort and put in the work. And don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's really a critical error and a flaw that I probably had early on is thinking I could do it all on my own. And where I am now, it's like collaboration is key. I've met billionaires. I've met people that are, worth $200, $300, $400 million. And what I've realized is their success was never on their own. Their success was always, collaborative with other people. And I'm like, okay, I understand. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And also always stay knowing, always stay learning. You'll never know more. You'll never know everything. And it's okay. And it's okay to say, hey, that's a great question. I don't know the answer, but I can get back to you. And so, yeah, man, that's it.
Man, well, thank you for coming on the show today. You dropped a lot of gems. Probably going to have to do another show with you and Ravel, to be honest with you, going forward, because we have a lot to discuss, right? We are in partnership together on a lot of different things, so it's pretty good to have you. Again, it was amazing. Your story, much like Mr. D'Souza's, is one. I don't have all these cool stuff y'all got, man. I'm a regular guy, right? You guys do some craziness, but it's awesome. And thank you for sharing your experience, your knowledge, the gems. I'm sure the listeners will get a lot from it, and understand that the discipline that it takes to be an entrepreneur is the same discipline that you're going to have if you want to compete on any level, right? Whether it be sports, Olympic, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's discipline and consistency. I think Ravel had spoke about consistency. I want to say, I might be totally wrong, but I think he was hitting that as his word. I think that was one of my questions I asked him. And it's true, right? In order to be successful, and whatever your level of success looks like, right? Because it's going to be different. You just got to be focused. You got to be disciplined, and you just have to have that hunger and understand that, hey, it's a risk that you're taking. Hopefully the good Lord is on your side, right? And if it doesn't work, okay, move on to the next one, man. So again, we thank you for coming on the show. Hopefully you had a decent time. You'll come back again.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, one of the things that sports has taught me is just the perseverance and determination. And so one of the things I didn't tell you that your listeners should know is you can always work harder, right? And so there's no such thing as being outworked. You can outwork somebody. And so that's just the nature of it. Like, I did kind of like start this whole tax game with my team, of my group of my friends, but it wasn't necessarily like, I'm better than anybody else. It's just I wanted something different. And then I saw it. And one of the things that I think I pride myself on is just being aware of like trends, but also opportunities. And so I see it. I always say, as long as I can see it, I can do it. So if I can see it, I can do it. And if it's been done before, it can be done again.
Amen. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Like I said, the same mentality. I'm the same as you. I tell my son the same thing. Ain't nobody gonna outwork me. Like, if you beat me, you beat me. But once we walk off that court, you gonna point to him, that guy right there, boy. Right? It's got to be something like, you ain't gonna just you ain't gonna walk on me. But anyway, again, we really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show. Listeners, I suck at the outro, man. That's all we have for today for TQ Talks. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. My son will give you guys a rest, and we'll see you guys next week. Later.
Thank you for listening to TQ Talks. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information at tqfinancials.com.